Hello guys, how's it going? Let me just share my screen before I forget. Excelente. All right. Let's see, where is it? Right here. Chat. Awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of progress in our little group, which makes me really happy. So that's the only way for me to actually see where you guys are at and then try to help as much as I can. Just a quick reminder that this next Saturday, we're gonna have another review session. So if you guys have anything ready by the end of the week, by Friday, I'm gonna pass again like the same link, it's like to a nice Google Drive. You can just drop off your files in there. That's gonna be the last one. Unfortunately, this is the last week of class, and I mentioned before that the last day for the previous class, I actually used that time actually to talk about like the clay renders and stuff. But since I already gave access to you guys, it's like, so you can actually watch those. It's gonna be kind of like a waste of time, I guess. It's like you can just rewatch that and you're gonna see exactly the process. So I was thinking about like doing this thing like more productively, and I still have plenty of work to do in my model. So I think like today I'm gonna be teaching like the eyelashes. Gonna be talking about eyelashes, how to add them with XGen. We're gonna be grooming as well, like doing the hair itself. So probably today is gonna be more about that. Tomorrow I'm gonna be actually opening this file here and showing exactly all my changes, my settings, because I changed a couple of things. It's like the skin shader is a little bit different right now. There is it's like a couple of things that I did. I plugged a couple of different maps. Jason Hill actually showed like an interesting tip yesterday about like plugging one procedural in Maya to create like a cell kind of micro bump, which works very nicely. I'm using it already in this guy here. And so tomorrow my plan is to actually break down this entire thing again and just update you guys and all the shaders and everything so you can see what I have in there. And then for the next couple of days, I think what I'm going to be doing is going to be basically like the fly on the wall thing, right? I'm going to sit my butt and I'm going to be just like, I'm going to narrate what I'm doing. I'm just going to be, okay, I'm going to be fixing this stuff. I'm going to remove some of the pores in there, make this, make that. It's like tweak certain things, improve the likeness, improve the hair, things like that. And I'm going to be describing everything, and you're going to be watching me doing a lot of stuff. And I think it's going to be very productive to actually watch the way I do it, because I mean, like I have to try to be, it's like play the teacher, right? Like, so I have to be very, specific about the things that I'm doing and try to break down things into mini tutorials for you guys. But I think it's going to be a cool way to just observe the way I do it. And then obviously you're going to have the questions and answers and all that stuff. But I think it's going to be cool just like to do a lot of work. And so I can get more stuff done until the end of the week, because next week we're going to start a new model. And new model is going to be my wife. So like a female, young. And then so you're going to have going to be a big contrast between what I'm doing with those old dudes and then with a female, like young, right? Like, so the form is going to be much more subtle and everything. And because you guys are going to have access to that class as well, I'm going to give you guys access. So we're going to have a way to compare, right? Like going to have like an older person, male, and then a younger person, female. So it's going to be cool, like win-win for you guys, 2 classes in one. This is basically like the renders I had. I'm going to be closing this one and going to start like talking about the grooming part of things. I think last week we had a ton of stuff going on. It's like from texturing to grooming to all kinds of stuff, and you had access to the class from the last month as well. So you have access to a lot of information, a lot of stuff to test and to it's like to just like do as an exercise. So just so we don't lose that same intensity, I'm gonna be adding more stuff to your arsenal today, talking about some other stuff. But before, let me just break down what I did when you guys are not watching, other than the textures and other than the shaders actually. But I'm gonna be talking about a little bit the painting, the coloring, and also the hairs, what I did with it. So the eyebrows here, as you can tell, they look very different from what we had last week when I groomed it. I'm gonna just show you here what we had before I did this whole thing. So I didn't have this pass here. So that's basically what I had, right? So I groomed like I made a, you know, it was like very sparse like that. And I show you guys like how to basically like make those guys thinner and keep some other ones a little bit thicker. So let's see, those blenders, are those here? Yeah, so I have some more of that stuff in there. So I have like some blenders that I added, and then some, let's see, yeah, some style. So I have like a couple of sculpt layers, right? So let's see, this one here, let's try to basically like remove everything and let's go from scratch, hoping that's not gonna crash on me or something. So basically like that's how we started, right? The grooming. And then basically like I had some, I added like a sculpt layer. That was the main one, which did very few things here. I added some guides, like the guides actually did the whole magic, right? Those little yellow guys, which are gray here. So actually we just forced them to go in V's like that. So going down and going up, I show you guys how to do that. And then I started adding some, started doing some more grooming on top of it. So this one here is the one that did most of the work. And as you can tell, like those guys here to create this effect, to get like those very, you know, it's like a messed up stuff like that you can see in the renders right here. It turned out actually quite nice in the render. So they look like that. And then like that, right? So flyaways, like pretty messy. And it's actually not messy enough because the actual guy has much messier stuff. So the way I did it, basically, just like I said last week, if I click, let's see, this one here, yeah, this is the layer, or this one. So if I click edit here, what I did here was basically like with the freeze tool, I just made like a very tiny cursor right here. So I could get, for example, like one of those, I would get like, let's just freeze everything first. Let me just get everything frozen here. So everything turns blue when it's frozen, right? So I'm gonna just reverse it, one of them. So let's pick one here that I need to make messy. So let's pretend we need this guy here. So now it's black, right? So what I did, I just grabbed this guy here, which is the comb brush. And then I went to tool settings. I made sure I had my invert frozen effect off because I'm not inverting it right now, just like working normally. And then with a big brush like that, I could start like actually tweaking it, right? Why is it the distance? Something's a little draggy here. I don't know if something is processing in the background, but it's a little draggy. Because normally this is pretty fast actually. So let me see. See if I have anything loaded here in the background. Let me just close a couple of things. Or my antivirus, no, it's okay. No, it's fine now. I think I closed a couple of things, it's fine now. So basically like what I do is this, you know, it's like for each one of those, I selected one single one of them. And then obviously I can play with this length brush, right? With the length brush, I can just like make it longer like that. And then I can just grab this guy here and curl just the top, the tip, for example, like that. And when I want to create like a nice curl, I just like, instead of like brushing right on top of it, I kind of like go more towards the side like that and just like barely kiss it. And then bring this one down, bring this one up. And then obviously if you just do from this angle here, it might look okay. But then if you go from the side, right, you have to make sure that it actually has some kind of, you know, it's like it's going somewhere, right? Instead of like just being flat against the skin. So make sure that you're actually modeling it three-dimensionally, right? So you can pull like that little tip a little bit more towards the head, like that. And that's basically how I did, you know, to create those guys. For everything else, like I said before, in the last class, instead of using the density tool, that's the one that breaks everything, and I hate it for it. Obviously, another option would be like grooming everything in a second head, like I told you guys before. And that head would have to have a single UV, right? I do this way because I have like U-dims and I'm grooming in the actual head with the U-dims. So that's why I have to do it this way, right? I cannot paint the density. Instead of painting the density, what I do, I actually make everything fade into peach fuzz, right? So I define like the minimum length for each one of them and just like paint everything until they get very thin and very small, and then blend with the peach fuzz, right? I still have to do a better job blending. Those guys are still a little thick in there, but that's basically how I do it. So that's how I actually groom each one of those. So they have to be kind of like individually groomed, right? And then for the peach fuzz, what I did, I increased the density by like maybe 4 times. So I told you guys a number, but I was reading about like the peach fuzz, and unlike the pores themselves, basically like they do not share the same pores, right? Like they grow from, it's almost like a parallel network instead of like the hair going inside of a pore and being part of that same network is actually part of like a secondary network. So they don't share the same kind of, it's like the roots are not in the same place, in the same depth as the rest of the hairs, right? For example, the beard. And the function of them is basically just like, if you sweat, they're going to collect the sweat in there and evaporate. So they work as a kind of like an insulation and also something to cool down your body, right? So it keeps the sweat out. So I added a lot of more density in here because I was looking at some references and it seems like it was very, very dense around the nose especially. So what I did here, just to open it, to show you guys, I have the attribute editor and I have my, let's see, this one here. So we see, actually, this is not it. That's the eyebrows, the fellas. So this one here, the fellas I have at like 4. Considering what we had like at 1 before, that was like last week. So basically like if I put 1 in here, it's gonna be very sparse. So it looked like that. So it wasn't enough at all. I don't know if you can see it. I can actually show like, let's do this. Oops. If I select something else here, you can see it. So it looked like that before, right? So it's kind of sparse. But if I click here and if I add like 4 here, now all of a sudden, it's gonna look much more dense. But obviously, look at your references first. So it looks much more like this now. And I'm using this, the noise, right? Like, so for the vellas here, I'm using some noise just to get them a little bit more curly, but not by much, just to add some direction and, so it doesn't look completely flat. And they have to be super thin as well. Otherwise, they start fighting with, with the lighting. You're gonna start getting like all those super specky little dots. So what I did here actually for the vellas, so comparing, for example, like if I have the eyebrows, for example, at width scale of 0.014 and just a little bit of tapering, so like 0.043 and a little curve like that, comparing to the vellas, which is the peach fuzz, now I have like even smaller curving here to make it even thinner, and the thickness is only 0.02, so it's like very, very, very super thin. It's so thin that you can barely see in the renders, which that's basically what we want, right? So you're gonna see around here, barely around the nose right there. Let me make this cursor a little smaller, around here. It's very, very little. Let's see if we can see anything. The nose has also a, I'm sorry, depth of field in here, so it's hard to see. But that's just what you see in there. It's almost like this velvety kind of thing in there. And you see like the nose hairs are pretty messed up right now. I have those dots that I cut and the minimum length didn't help me. So I'm gonna have to, it's like either make them super thin or So we're gonna have to deal with that. But in areas where you get like the highlights like that, you're barely gonna see any peach fuzz, and that's what we want, you know? We wanna see the peach fuzz only in like glancing angles or like in an area of shade, you know? But other than that, we don't wanna see them that much. And that was his mistake here with this guy. You're seeing too much of it. So the thickness in relation to this one here is already like almost twice as thin. And the color is being controlled by a map. So I'm gonna show you guys the map as well. So let's see what else I changed when it comes to the to the hair stuff, since we're gonna be talking about hair today. I added the stubble, right? The stubble looks like this. And the way I did it was just like I did with the eyebrows. I select an area, right? So I selected this entire area that's kind of like this describes the area of the beard, like all the way here, all the way to the neck. Just turn off this grid. So all the way here, and then you can see right there. So that's basically what I did. And then the amount of hair, let's see if I remember. Let's see if I still have it in here. Let me select this. Yeah, so for the stubble, I used like a density of 100, which gave me 280,000 of them, right? Just for that specific area. But then at the end, let's see, 280,000. I don't think I used all of them. So let's see, in the stubble base, I'm actually using 50% of that. So basically like 140,000 little hairs I added in there, which is like similar to the amount of hairs you have in the scalp, right? About that number, between 100 and 150. So that's basically what I added for this entire area. And then as for the thickness, I'm still working on it. I think it looks too thick right now. And I think I can add, they are looking too much like little squares right now. So if I go to the stubble, let's see. I have, let's see, it's 18. So let's make like 16 for the scale, the width. And also let's add a little bit of taper here. It's gonna get a little bit too triangular, I think. Maybe I can add a little bit of a length as well. Although I kind of like the length the way it is. Let's see, 350. Yeah, a little bit more like that. And another thing I forgot to check. Let's make sure that we have always tube shading. And also, if you go to Arnold, make sure you have your thick, right, for mode. So it doesn't render like planes. It's gonna like render like an actual tube, right? But still, I don't like the way it looks in there. I'm gonna be working on it a little bit more, probably tweaking the, let's see, it's double. Yeah, maybe reducing this even more. Let's try 12. Yeah, maybe something like that. That would work better. Anyway, enough with this. Yeah, that's basically what I did in terms of the hair. And then, like I said, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the, the shader itself. When it comes to the color, what I did here, I actually added more of the sunburn stuff. So I isolated this, right? So if I just do a preview in here so you can see the HD. So I added more color, so it's like much stronger now in the eye bags like that. Added some veins in here, hand painted instead of using that little map I have. And then for those areas, this one is still a little bit too strong in around there. This one kind of works nicely around there, but I'm gonna be actually adding more of those and just making a little bit more blended with the skin itself, right? I added a little bit more of some yellows around this areas here, around the side of the eyes. And then some greens around there. It was already there, actually. I just reinforced a little bit. And then I'm going to keep painting, obviously, until the last minute. I'm going to be painting this entire thing. Ears and neck have no detail. I'm going to have to do a big job with that still. But the way it works so far, it's like it's turning out, pretty nicely in the render. So I'm kind of like basing myself on the render results, right? So I look at the render result, compare with my references, and whatever color I feel it's missing in there, I just go back to my color and just like add a little bit more of that color in there, right? And then if I feel like, oh, the eyelids are a little bit too dark, I can go back and just like, okay, paint a little bit more. Because at this point, it's not like you're gonna reinvent the wheel every time, right? Like you're gonna tweak your texture. You're gonna have to base on something solid, and nothing better than an actual render with a color calibrated lighting. So in this case here, the lighting is basically calibrated at, I believe it's like about 7,500 Kelvin. So it's kind of like daylight, right? Instead of like something a little bit more yellow. And my idea is to actually share with you guys this lighting setup, because I don't like giving stuff away, because I rather get people like to do it again. I just show the settings, you guys just repeat so you can actually learn it. But this is such a simple setup that I think I'm just gonna give this one away. And then, I mean, like this is all it is, you know, it's like I have 3 lights set up. One is from the back, so it's an area light. Those other 2 lights in here, I was mistaken before. I said that it was okay to actually plug an HDRI map in an area light, and I tried, and I could not get like to render to actually have a visible HDRI map in there. Maybe I did something wrong. So instead of that, what I did, I actually create those planes. So basically like just like regular objects, right? Like planes in Maya. And then you can actually go to your lighting and just say like create a mesh light. So basically like if you can turn any object into a mesh light. So I turned those planes into mesh lights, and then I plugged some map in there, the umbrella HDRI. So let's see if I can open it. It looks like this. So with that, basically I have 2 umbrellas, one on each side. So the reflections, I can get a little umbrella in the reflection. So it looks more realistic, you know, instead of having just like a simple window. When you look closely, you're gonna see like there's a little bit of umbrella in there in the reflections, you know. So I think he adds a little bit of realism to it. So yeah, this scene, I don't know if I'm gonna do this during the week, but at least like in the weekend, I can just like upload this stuff. And I point you guys to where you can download the umbrella HDRI as well. And you can just have that, you know. I can save something and I put it into a cube in there as a reference, so you know the size of the object and position. And then you should be able to get like a similar render. So let me go and let's do some grooming now, since the updates are out of the... Yeah. Okay, cool. This is basically like the way he creates those planes, by the way. It just links a light inside of those planes. So it's a little messy because sometimes you tend to move the light itself, but it's always good to move the plane, and then the light just follows it. But that's just a detail. Let's do some grooming here. Let's get to this guy, and I'm gonna hide everything but the head. And let's start with the eyelashes. I think it's an important one. In the past, like I said before, I would just like add those eyelashes by hand and as polygons. So I would have like, let's say like I would create one, and then just make sure that the root, like the pivot was right at the root. And then I would duplicate it. So I could basically like rotate one by one, you know, it's like based on the root, and then change scale and size and everything. And I always thought like, yeah, that's the best way to do it. And I never thought like the XGen would actually give me a nice result, but I was wrong. I mean, like XGen actually makes very nice eyelashes. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna have to define some areas here. In the case of my model, it's gonna be a little hard to actually select specifically those edges, but I'm gonna do it like with, I think I have enough, like I can just like double click some spanners here and just get it. So let's do this. So I have my mirror already, the symmetry is already on, and I told you guys how to do it. Basically, like if you click the last option here, topology, it's gonna actually give you an option to just, I can do it again, just like click topology, and then basically like it shows this little cursor, and just click any edge right in the middle, and then it's gonna give you the name of the mesh in there, and then everything is symmetrical from this point on. So let's right click the mouse and go to, let's say edge. And let's double click a few edges here. Let's get, normally the eyelashes, they are not like it's a common mistake, you know, it's like to add them in a perfect line. They are not in the perfect line at all. If you look at references, they're gonna be like in a good you have to give a good space for them to grow, like, you know, it's like up and down. Some of them grow a little bit more under the edge, some are more on top of the edge, but around this area. So I'm gonna start by the edge right here. And see, like this was a bad call right there, because if I planned my edges perfectly before, I would not have to deal with this, which is actually, you know, is that you see, like it's opening up. It's always good, like for example, like when I work at my professional work, I have to make sure that all those edges are perfect, right? Because the next person in line is gonna have to deal with this mess. But you see, like with my own stuff, I'm not that careful, because I actually enjoy the pain. So apparently. So let's do this, and I think it's gonna be completely fine too, because I rather paint stuff, you know, it's a little bit more like with an artistic freedom in there. So but that definitely would make easier if you didn't. So after I have my edges selected, I just press F11, and then it converts from edges to polygons, right? And now I don't need to actually keep this entire thing selected. I can just like go and paint the selection here and just remove some of that stuff. And it doesn't need to be a perfect line, because the last thing we want is a perfect line, like I said. So let's go face. Let's start paint off some of that around here. And we can just, you know, it's like fade some of them, no problem at all. And maybe around there, let's see if it's inside here is too much. Actually, it's going a little bit too much. So I'm gonna just keep the buffer a little bit smaller, make my cursor smaller too. So I'm gonna grow inside of that band right there. Let's see if this area here is too much. If you plan it well before you start doing your detail, I could, at this point, I still could do some work here because I don't have a ton of detail. But just so you guys see that I'm not completely precise about this kind of stuff. In the past, I'm gonna tell you, like I was much more anal about stuff like that. I would like kind of OCD, you know, it's like I would have to put like round numbers on everything. So if I move the model, I could not ever move a model like, you know, it's like 2.35, you know, it would have to be like a 2 or 2.3. And nowadays I just do everything so free form. And it kind of like frees me as well, you know, it's like I feel better about it, because in nature things are not quite like that, right? Like, I mean, like nature can be very precise when it comes like to patterns and things like that. We already spoke about it. But when you look from a macro version of it, right, like from a distance, everything is quite random before you start investigating how organized things are. But everything looks quite random. I think I'm gonna grow this area here a little bit more, and then I'm just gonna eliminate whatever I don't need it in there. So let's do that. You might be lucky and get your model to look a little bit less messy than that. And then I'm gonna just eliminate from here on. We don't need this area to have any grooming, unless you wanna transform some of that stuff into, you know, like peach fuzz. But I'm just gonna keep some of them growing from here. Let's just look at some references here. Let's see. Let's look at some eyelashes. So let's see, something like that. This one is kind of like a nice one, because it's kind of like from the bottom. See, it grows until there, but not quite until the carunculum, right? It's kind of like it stops around there. So I'm gonna eliminate some of them in that area. So basically like the masking here, I'm gonna just clean it up a little bit until around here. Let's go up here and do the same with this bottom part. Maybe a little bit more around here. Like I said before, I'd rather have a bigger mask than have a nice smaller one, because once you have one that's too small, then you cannot grow hair in there, right? Unless you transfer this to another, you know, it's like you do basically like you save your hair groom, and then just re-importing this object with the object selected, and then it should open instead of like having a limitation with the faces you selected, you know. But at this point here, I have this limitation because I'm selecting just this area. So I can actually go a little bit bigger than what I expect in general, you know. Let's see where the curvature is here. I want to make sure I get, yeah, it's still pretty big in there. So I'm just gonna get this area here. Yeah, XGen is very nice for grooming eyelashes. You're gonna enjoy it. Let's see, as long as you get the right parameters and everything. So let's see, let's pretend I am happy with that. Let's get this one gone. And then anything I don't need, I can just like, you know, basically like fade them to nothing, right? Instead of like eliminating completely, I can just fade them into like peach fuzz or something, or completely disappear with it. Okay, so like here, yeah, maybe I can add some more right there and eliminate those guys here. Something like that. Let's see if the other side's okay. It looks okay. Oh, I forgot to do something here actually that I did in the other class, which was to do it separate. So I'm gonna separate both of them. Let's do that. It's gonna be easier to manipulate if everything is separate. So let's eliminate that. And I'm gonna just groom the bottom, actually the top eyelids first, eyelashes first. And the reason why is the density is not the same. The top and the bottom are different densities. Basically, like the top eyelid, you have like twice as much eyelashes as the bottom one. The number I pulled actually here, it's about, so the top eyelid is basically like 150 to 200 hairs in each one. And then the bottom one is between 75 and 100. So it's like, you know, it's double. So what we're gonna be doing here, since we have both selected, instead of like 100 and, I would say like he's an older guy, so he probably has less at this point, right? Apparently like each one of the hairs has a lifespan of like 135 days or something like that. And then over time, I mean, like, yeah, a person is getting older, you're gonna start losing some of those and they're not coming back, right? Like the same way you're losing hair. So I'm gonna keep like in the lower end of it, maybe like 150 for each one of them. So that's basically like 300 for both of them. So let's do XGen. Let's go to here. And let's see, create interactive grooms. And then I'm gonna name this one upper lashes. And then you see the count here is 45 right now, but I need 300, right? So let's try, let's see, 300, so that's about 700. So 315, maybe a little bit less than that, 690, less than that, 660, pretty close. That's close enough. If I want to be very anal, let's see. Oh, getting close. Oh, here I go with my OCD. Okay, 300 on the dot. So 300 on the dot, and then the length here, I can make a little bit longer than that. Let's say, I don't even know. Let's try 0.8. And then let's keep that number for now, but it's gonna be temporary. And then for the CV count, I would do like 32 here because we wanna make sure we have them very flexible. So I'm gonna do that. And yeah, the length I think is gonna work. Basically, that's what we have right now, right? Doesn't look like much. It's growing from some different places in there. So the first thing you're gonna do the same thing we did with the eyebrows, right? So I'm gonna select this guy here, eyelashes, and I'm gonna go expand a little bit so you can see what's inside, and then click eyelashes and add a modifier. And this one is gonna be the guide, right? Same thing. So press the guide. Remember, like the guide is just a modifier, but it has to have its own system inside of it, right? So I'm gonna click the eyelashes again, the upper lashes. Actually, you're gonna click the guide. And then I'm just gonna scroll it down here. And then you should see something that says create for the input stuff. So I'm gonna create it, and it's gonna create a bunch of little lines for me. Didn't do much here. Let's see. In guide, it's there, but I cannot see it. Let's see if it created actually. Let's see if I can create something by hand here. Let's try. I rather have to create everything by hand than trusting that's gonna place in the right spots. But let's see if it just like if it worked or not. So if I click this guy here, that's basically like place tool. So I can do stuff by hand, place stuff by hand. Let's make sure that I have symmetry on, or not. Let's do without the symmetry for now. And let's just click one of them here. So under my guide, so in guide, let's try if it's gonna see if it's gonna work or not. So I'm gonna click one here. Okay, so that's working, but it's very, very small. So I'm gonna just grow it. Oops, I'm gonna grow it like that. And let's do like a much smaller width as well. Oh, this is the wrong one. This one. Kind of like that. So make it a little smaller than that. And let's try to style it just to see if it's working or not. So if I do a style here just for the guide itself, yep, it's not connected. So it has this thing sometimes, you know, it's like a XGen, sometimes it fails miserably. So let me try it again. So let's try again. So I have my sculpting there. Let's turn it on just to make sure. And then let's try to add a modifier again and see what happens. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna reboot it because, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of doing that. And then I have my guide in there, create, input. Yeah, it's not creating. Great, awesome. Yeah, that's part of the fun stuff with XGen we're gonna be facing from time to time. So let's just try to save this first and see if we have luck when it comes back. So 16. There is always a way, of course, like to style all that stuff by hand. It is not a lot of work actually, but it's nice, you know, it's like if you can actually control with just a few of them, I would do that. So I'm gonna try it again. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna basically like style this entire thing by hand because I don't wanna deal with XGen's bullshit sometimes. But it should work. I mean, like it's, most of the time, you know, it's like if something goes a little funky, it just like doesn't respond anymore. You know, you reboot your mind and all of a sudden things start working again. So I never know what's going on. So this one is saved. I'm gonna save again. Let's do that. And then reopen it. I love wasting my time with the bugs. Go Maya. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get that thickness in there. I have to nail that. Let's look for some other references in here. Yeah, the female eyelashes are interesting, you know, because they use all this mask stuff. So there's a lot of crunchy stuff stuck to it. So normally, like you think they're like very thick. It's because they're covering this mask thing, right? Looks like this black paint in there. But they are not very thick actually. And especially with older people, you're not gonna see a lot of thickness either. And sometimes like with older people, they get a little bit more translucent and start like fading to white, right? So we get this kind of like translucent, like pale blondie. Let's go Maya, waiting for you. Okay, let's see. All loaded. Okay, let's try that. And let's hope for the best. Oops. So, okay. Hoping that's gonna be an amazing experience from this point on. Just hoping. Okay, so I got my upper lashes in there saved. And let's see if we can groom this stuff. So I got my upper lashes. Let's add a modifier, a guide. Select the guide. Create. Oh man, I don't think it's doing anything. I don't think there is anything assigned there. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I didn't do anything differently from what I normally do, so I'm not sure. Let's delete this one. Let's try to create again and see if it does anything differently. Nope, not doing it. Simply not doing it. Oh man, that sucks. This was like such a very, very simple step, you know. Actually, you guys have access to the videos like from May, and around this time, like the last week, you're gonna see exactly the same video. And that one I actually managed to have the guides installed in there and do the grooming. So for now, let's try just you know, it's like, so my conscious is clean. Let's try to groom the bottom part, since I'm gonna have to do it anyway. And let's see if this one works. If it doesn't, then we move on with, you know, it's like maybe the hair. Something has to work today. So now it's symmetrical. Let's go to my selection. Switch to face, which is right click face. Then B, drag to change the size, and just to select this. Probably not that one. Change around here. And then that should be good. A little bit more. And that's the bottom of it. Around here. That should be good enough. Let's try it again. So interactive groom. It's gonna be the lower. And then this one has to have half of that, right? So I said 300, so this one is gonna have to have 150 in the bottom part. Let's go back. 350, you're pretty close, 355, cool. Okay, 149, so let's try that, apply. Got those guys facing up. Let's try to add a modifier and hope for the best. Create. Oh, this one worked. Incredible, isn't it? You just created one side. So let's do that thing. Let's just create a couple of more by hand. So sculpt, just click this one. And then let's add a couple by hand. So let's see, click this guy here. Add one right there. Did it work? Nope. Okay, so that one is affecting those now. And I can eliminate one of those. Let's hope this one is gonna work. At least like for here, the density brush works most of the time. So yeah, this one worked fine. So I have like in a very similar position, not quite. Let's just try to add some of them like in the right position. So I'm gonna put one right in the corner right here. Another one right in the corner right there. One around the middle. And just the filling around here. And then around here. And I'm gonna try to eliminate this guy. And obviously Maya is not gonna allow me to. So I'm gonna have to deal with it. Man, why is it so buggy? Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's go back here. That's why Autodesk is never gonna sponsor me, because I complain about their stuff too much. Right there, and here, and that one's good. I wish I could eliminate just that one, but that's hoping for too much, right? That's not That's not how things work here around this parts. Anyway, so let's just tweak this one. I'm not gonna mess too much with it, right? Let's deal with whatever we have, since XGen is being so nice to us today, partially. And then I have all those guys there, so now I can actually, you know, groom some of them. So let's, the upper eyelashes are already hidden. So I'm gonna switch to this one, to the comb brush. Oops. Oh, and I already can see that they are not affecting the, Jesus Christ, man. They were working before, now they stopped working. Let's try to rebuild them. Sometimes it works, but ugh, it lost connection again. It is incredible. Let's try again with those guys. Oh man. Last time, guys, sorry. Guide, create. You worked in there. I'm not gonna even try to delete anything now. I'm just gonna deal with whatever. Let's try this one. Oh no, that's the wrong one. This guy, the guide itself. I actually have to switch between the actual hair and the guide in order to do this. Otherwise it doesn't help. So let's try again. And see if those are actually working. Let's try to groom it. Yeah, those ones are working. But surprisingly, it's affecting the other side, which I have no idea why. Right? So let's try again. Let's add this guy here to this side. And I'm not gonna be eliminating anything. I'm just gonna deal with whatever ones are there. There, and another one here. This should be like a very, very simple process, and you see how painful it's being just to do this. It's the kind of stuff, you know, it's like if you're starting a brand new scene, you should be completely fine. But as soon as you start adding too much like different types of hairs in the scene, all of a sudden it gets very unstable for some reason, you know. So now at least we can do some work, finally. So the first thing I do, I go from the top like that, and I spread them out, kind of like make a little kind of like doll kind of style like that, right? So I have an idea about positioning and everything. And then I can start like actually curving them. So I'm gonna bend them, again, like barely touching them, just kissing the tip of it. Just like bring them down. This one actually has to come more towards the outer part. More towards the front. And then let's try it from there. Too much? Actually afraid of undoing. That's the level of terror that I live under XGen. I'm afraid of undoing stuff. And then right here, close to the root of the hair, you can just actually bring them up like that. That's the beginning of it. Still, you know, it's like thick, and there is no shape to them. There is no, you know, it's like a clumping going on. But it's good that we have, like I said, like you see, like they kind of like have a couple of rows in there. It's not like a single line. You can actually add some of them manually just to get more of that, if you have enough buffer, obviously. So let's see the other side, if it's okay. It's fairly okay. Let's get one of those references in here, and let's just look at the angle of them. So we have an idea. For example, like this one looks a little bit more of a older. So kind of like it goes, it doesn't go too much like up, but it goes slightly up in some of them. Some kind of like goes straight and then goes down, right? Those ones are going up around here. So some of them are okay to go up slightly. Let's see. Again, like with women, is hard to see what's going on because they use those little brushes, right? Like with the mascara, and then all this stuff. You know, it's like you never know if the direction is a natural direction or if it's just like being brushed. But this type of stuff here is more like you know, you can trust, I guess. So some of them are going slightly up and then going down, but mostly kind of like a straight line. And again, you see like the different rolls in there, not like a straight line. They're like fairly like spread out in the way they grow. But oh, that one, there was a interesting one in here. This one's kind of like an older dude. See how thin and like faded they are? Just like I said before, they are losing the basically like discoloration, right? Losing coloration and getting very pale. And the amount of peach fuzz, you can see how dense it is right there, right? But around here, you can barely see it. So so we're gonna be doing that kind of stuff. That's I think the approach for my guy. It's gonna be like thin and then a little messed up and very pale as well. So we're gonna be doing that. So right from the get-go here, they look like they're too long, but we can also we can actually use that for advantage while we are sculpting. So let's get this to go up very slightly. The cool thing about the guides is that you can actually control a lot of hairs with very few lines, right? So that's the advantage of it. But you can totally style without it if you don't have access to it. It's just more like a pain in the butt. So let's pretend we are happy with you know, the angles, which I'm not. I'm gonna be tweaking this later if XGen allows me to. But for now, I think I'm gonna just keep the way it is. Make sure you don't have like waviness like that side to side, you know. Make sure that it goes straight down because we're gonna be controlling the angles with some other nodes in there, but we don't want like anything to be too wobbly, you know. We need it to look like it's actually something believable. So let's hide them now. So if you go to guide in here, the subsystem inside of the lower eyelashes is gonna turn it off. So you can only see the hairs now, right? It looks a little bit like doll-like. And obviously we are preserving the guides in here so we can actually keep sculpting more and more as we need, right? But at any time, you can add like a sculpting node or modifier on top of everything and just completely bypass what the guides are doing and just sculpting as you wish with the hairs themselves, right? So just gonna hide it for now. And let's do let's do a hand, actually we can actually, let's see, maybe like scale down those guys just to help a little bit. So let's try that. Let's see this guy here. Make sure that I have in guide selected, right? And then let's shrink this one. So I have a little bit closer to what we expect. Slightly this one's, and then a little bit that. And then in terms of length, it might look like it's a little bit too long, but it might be what we want actually, because we're going to be playing with the tapering and everything. And then sometimes it looks like it's too long, but then as soon as you start adding the tapering, things get a little bit, it looks more normal, you know. So let's hide it. And let's add a modifier here. So under lower lashes, so like the top node, gonna add a modifier. Remember, like this is a subsystem. So if you add a modifier when you have this one selected, it's gonna add down here, right? And we don't want that. We don't want to modify the guides. We want to modify the actual hairs. So let's add one here. That's gonna be, let's see, modifier, and let's do a clump first. So by default, you notice what happened here, right? So it's like it's clumping a lot of hairs at the same time, but we don't want that. So we're gonna go to clump modifier, this one here, and then we go to attribute editor. And then let's look at what's causing that to clump like a bunch of hairs at the same time. And this is this parameter here. If you scroll down, there is a density parameter that's already maxed out at 1. right? And it's so basically like if you, at first sight, if you look at it, it doesn't go higher than 1. But if you crank this one, let's say 10, now you got like more guys like that, right? So let's try to crank this number, let's see, 50. And let's see, maybe 100. You get the point, right? Like you keep cranking this one and you can get much more stuff in there. Let's see at 300 here. Gets a little bit more natural. Still a little bit kind of like doll-like slightly. Let's see if it's 400 is too much. Yeah, it might work actually. So 400. So I get some of them doing that, but then obviously, if you scroll up here, for example, the clump is it's all the way to 1, right? And you have negative numbers as well. You can actually cross them the other way around like that, right? So you can actually add 2 clump modifiers. For example, one you can do something that brings them together, and then the other one actually spreads them out. You can add like multiple, or you don't need to completely close them together, you know. So let's do something here. Let's start playing with. I think I can go actually higher with that number. Let's see what the 600 looks like. Yeah, not sure. Yeah, still like the distance is so small that I might have to add a couple of different you know, modifiers in there. But let's play with the scale first. So let's go to the lower lashes here. Go to the top node. And this one here is going to be the thickness of it. So I have 10. It looks pretty thick for 10. Let's see, 0.05. It's too little. Why does it look so thick at 10? 0.08. Let's try 10 and then just add some tapering. Let's do tube and then modify that Arnold parameter from ribbon to thick. And let's go up here and then just like taper it. So you see like they start looking like they are shorter, right? Just because they're getting super thin at the edges. And then obviously you can control the thickness using this curve here as well. So if you go to spline and then just go down, now you're basically controlling the base of it, the root. And then if you expand it here, you can actually tweak the root right there. And then you can control the fall off like much nicer this way. So like I said before, even though it's not like a physically accurate, I like to have the root slightly smaller than the rest, just to get a little bit of more of a blend in there. But it's up to you guys. It's kind of like my personal thing. So I do that, and then I get something that looks a little bit nicer. Something like that. If it's too thin, basically like if you crank this number here, it's gonna respect anything you did, right? So it's gonna keep the tapering and everything. So you're gonna have to play and see how it looks in the renders. Try not to go too thick, you know. I'm gonna keep around 12 for now. And as you can see, it's still a little bit on the, it's too regular, right? So my clump, I'm gonna have to start doing some tweaks in here. Let's add another clump modifier just to see what happens. So if I do another clump, that's overriding the bottom one now. I'm gonna do the same thing. Under density, let's crank to 400. But then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna reverse it. Gonna reverse it around there. Basically countering that one. And then for the mask, let's see. Yeah, you can play with the masking here to get like a decent result. The direction, I'm not liking the direction right here. Let me just tweak my guides again. Just tweak this slightly. Okay. Just sort of direction, you know, it's like I like to have like a perfect kind of like offset from the arc of the eyelids, right? So you see if it's too weird, I kind of stop. So basically like, let me turn off the symmetry right now. At some point we have to break the symmetry so it looks more natural. Bring this one there, and this one a bit more here. You see, like so far we didn't spend too much time doing it, and it's already pretty decent, you know. It's like you could potentially render something like that. It would look fairly decent. But obviously, what I do after this whole process here is to actually start like picking a few of them by hand and then tweaking like lengths and stuff like that. So you got the little wobbly right there at the root. I'd rather make it straight again and then just do it again. I like to add the curvature again. I don't like any wobble at the roots. And then bring it up slightly. And let's turn it off again. And now that we have that, now we can actually play with some sizes. I can add a sculpt node. Instead of like adding the sculpt node inside of the guide, that subsystem, that's basically just controlling the guide, you're gonna do on top of it. So it's gonna be around here, right? So lower eyelashes, and I'm gonna add a sculpt modifier. So let's do sculpt. And this one here, if I open it and click edit, remember to always click edit, then you can actually play with the thickness, right? So I can go, for example, here. Let's see if it's symmetrical. Yeah, it is symmetrical. And I'm just gonna play it with this guys here, make slightly thinner, right? You can see like it's getting thinner in there. Like that. And then just clicking like randomly in some of them. And then I can add another one here, basically like control the length as well, right? I can just shrink them. It's a little bit strong, so let's get the 0. Oh, you guys are free to ask questions if you need.
Chris, I have one question. I
Yeah.
don't know if it has something with the class, because I work a lot with sculptures, and every time that we got to the hairs and all the details,
yeah.
But it seems that I could try using the XGen to generate some kind of eyebrows and all these hairs to help me. But one question would be, how would I export it as mesh?
Oh yeah, it's easy. It's easy if I remember what it is. But so let's say let's see, is it there? Substance generate. It's under generate. So basically, like you click. Let's see if I'm not gonna crash. Let me just.
Save it, save it.
Yeah, I'm gonna save my scene here first. So basically, like it's under generate. You just select your description, and then it should be pretty straightforward to generate the polygons from it. So let's see. Okay, so under cache, so I have my lower lashes selected. Under cache, you're gonna go to actually generate. You're gonna go to export. Let's see, it's here somewhere. Convert. Oh, this one. Convert interactive room to polygons. So I'm gonna click that one, and then combine mesh. Blah blah blah. It creates UVs as well, which is interesting.
Nice.
And then so basically, I'm gonna click convert. So if I go to my outliner now, I have this guy here. We should have everything in one single mesh. Let's just, let's see, custom, and then center. And then if I move it out, that's it. So if you look,
that's awesome.
So if you look closely, I mean, like they are little strips, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like you could potentially just like extrude them, I believe. So let's try to extrude them. Let's see thickness here. Oh, too much. 0.01. Yeah, and then obviously my normals are flipped in here. Let me just flip them back, and then yeah, something like that. If I smooth them out, let's see. It's a little bit denser. Yeah, they look nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with eyebrows, it would work a lot. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Okay, let's go back to this guy. And then, yeah, so I mean, like I'm tweaking as I go here. I made a little bit shorter already. And there's something about the positioning. You see, like they are too much on top of it. It's almost like I needed them to go a little bit lower than that. When you need this kind of stuff to offset things, there's one thing you can try here. For example, you click the lower eyelashes, the top node, and just add another modifier, and you can use the which one is that? The displacement. So the displacement in here has a bunch of parameters. And one of them here is the base, and there's the offset. So let's see, if I play with this one here, see, like I can go up a little bit higher and a little bit lower. So this one can help you to actually position them more correctly. And then obviously you can actually use a modifier to just like pull stuff up. So I actually tweaked my base to like a little bit higher. And then there's the offset as well. The offset, you know, it's like just bring, let's see if it does negative. I believe it does. So yeah, it goes all the way negative. So this one as well, you can play with it and get stuff to, you know, to fall to the location you want, you know. So between this one and this one, that's basically what I changed, right? Like 0.018 around there. Then obviously you can tweak it till you find like the perfect spot. And then the other thing you can try to do here, let's see if it's gonna work. Let's see if we can add another modifier, which is gonna be a noise. But obviously we don't want noise to make everything wobble like that, right? We wanted just to try to control a little bit of the direction. Let's see if we can do that, if it's possible with this one. Let's try noise. And then the frequency, I'm gonna keep it very low. Magnitude, let's see if I can control with the curve. Yeah, I don't like playing too much with the root, but in this case here, it might actually help. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's gonna make a mess. Yeah, I'd rather not play with the root, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm probably gonna do a lot of stuff manually, I guess, but you can try with the different nodes. Like I said, this one, like if you play with the root, you normally get like a lot of artifacts. But this guy here, if you can add maybe a tiny little bit of a curvature, maybe it can be helpful, so it looks a little bit more natural. And then I can go back at any time to my sculpt node in here. And then since we are not sculpting the curves anymore, we're sculpting, you know, it's like this is kind of like a free form sculpture on top of it. So now I can actually brush them into something that I like, you know, a little bit more of a curvature like that. So basically, like this is a modifier that's on top of my curves, right? Like the curves are actually controlling it until a certain point right there, but they are not quite following the curves perfectly anymore because I'm actually adding a modifier on top of the curves. So basically, like the curves is just the starting point, and then everything else here I'm basically like sculpting by hand now. It's like to get a little bit more of that nice curvature. And then at this point here, if I want to basically like get some of them to make more natural, let's see, I think my displacement could go a little bit further than that actually. Yeah, around there, I think 0.30, that should be okay. Let's just bring it up a little bit. And for example, around here, if I want to do something a little bit more natural, I can just click this one, the freeze one. I'm gonna make it very small, and I'm gonna select a few. So let's get this guy here. I'm gonna freeze it. Let's get another one that's a little separate like that. So I don't have, let's leave a little space in between them. And maybe that guy. And maybe, let's see, this guy here. Same for this side. So I can actually sculpt multiple, you know, like without colliding and causing too much mess in there. Just gonna pick some of them like a little bit separate like that. Maybe one of those, this guy, and another one, that guy. So now when I sculpt it, I can just press that button that we didn't use just yet. This is the invert frozen effect, right? So if I use that one instead, I'm supposed to be able to sculpt just those guys. So that's what's happening. So I'm gonna add a little bit of length in those guys. Oh, not this guy. The length actually has to invert as well. So invert the frozen effect. I'm gonna increase the length. Just add like some, you know, it's like some random ones. A little bit longer than usual. Oh, it's symmetrical. Okay, I'm okay with that. So we already grew those the other side. And now I can sculpt them. So let's pretend like they're kind of like strays, right? Like they change a little bit angles and stuff. But just remember, like, try not to make them too wavy from the top. If it's too wavy, just like pull it a bit straighter again, and just redo the curve from the side. And then if you want to really curve the tips, just kiss it with the edge of the brush. Anything like when it comes to realism, right? Like any little thing you can do to help, instead of like relying too much on automatic solutions, it's gonna show at the end. You know, it's like it can be a tiny little thing. If you're modeling peach fuzz, for example, and you see like the entire peach fuzz is very even, just to go like I'm doing here, just like pick a few of them, especially like in profiles, in silhouette, for example, like ears or the cheeks. You know, it's like places where you actually gonna see the difference when the light hits it, and then you just go there and just like, you know, grow them slightly, change the curvature, stuff like that. You don't need to do with many. And I was like, when it comes to peach fuzz, sometimes you can do like pick like 10 or 15 of them and do that. And then when you render your stuff, you know, it's like people are gonna be like, oh man, look, I can see the difference in there. I can see the variation, but without being something that's completely, you know, obvious, right? So I'm just gonna unfreeze them. Now you can see like that little guy in there, for example, got longer than the other ones. So it's a nice little touch. So I'm gonna uncheck my frozen effect, and I'm gonna pull those guys up a little bit. Counter a little bit of that displacement node, right? Just like to get just right, just where I want it. And you see like as I move them up, they're kind of like dancing around. Is because it's taking into account all the other nodes, right? Like, so basically like the displacement and noise are affecting it. So if I move something, the noise is being applied to it as I move. So if you want to make sure you're controlling everything, you turn off, for example, noise and displacement, and then you can actually see what you're doing, right? My displacement seems like a little bit too strong now. I think I'm gonna go back and put maybe like 25. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a sweet spot for the edge in there. And then obviously with this, with the style, with the comb brush, I can actually just find the sweet spot for them. But I would say it's okay-ish. So basically like what I did here is what you guys gonna do for the top as well. The problem is like, I don't know if I can do the top here because as you can tell, XGen is acting funny. But let's do something here. Let's assign the shader. And like I said before, I have one single shader that I assigned for everything. In the case of the eyelashes, this is optional. You know, it's like if you want to try to control it as a separate shader, you can do that. But in my case here, I'm just going to use a single map to control everything. So I'm going to select the lower lashes. I'm going to click hair. I'm going to assign it. And the hair shader is basically like, those are my parameters here. So it's like the color is default, base is default. The melanin redness by default is 0.5. I'm bringing down a little bit because I don't want too much redness. And the randomizer, if you click all, if you put like all the way up, you should get like a kind of salt and pepper kind of effect. But I'm not doing that. So just a little bit, I made a little bit of variation because most of the variation comes from the melanin map. And the melanin map is basically this one here that I showed you guys before. So let's just uncheck everything. And let's just show flat color. So basically the melanin map here is the opposite, right? Everything you see in white is gonna be black in the render. Everything you see in black is gonna be white in the render. So that's basically what I'm using. I could do the opposite. For example, I could paint the way you would see, for example, white instead of black and black instead of white here. And then just like in Maya, under the melanin here, the map itself, I could use an invert parameter, which is around effects invert. So this one would invert everything, right? So you could potentially like paint the way you see it, but I got used to painting like, you know, without using it. So that's why I do it. But there's no reason why you guys, you know, cannot use the invert to do that. So feel free to do it. So for the map, basically like what's happening there, as you can tell, so I'm getting like black hairs from inside of the nose. some some black hairs are coming from the eyebrows. Most of them are black, but then every time you get a little gap in black like that, you're gonna get a white hair. And then for this area here, for the eyelashes themselves, you should get pretty much like white, right? So if I want some of them to look a little bit more black, I'm gonna have to go there and paint white in the case of my map. You can see, for example, like around this area here, I want those little hairs, which is basically peach fuzz. This one actually it includes everything, including peach fuzz, right? So that's why most of the peach fuzz is being kind of like a whitish and pale. It's because it's coming from this black color. But around this area here, on purpose, I wanted to make it to be a little bit more dark, right? Like kind of like a monkey kind of peach fuzz in there. So that's why I keep that color. So if I go back here, then let's see. This one is a sign. Let's do a little render. Let's try with that same lighting setup that I had before. Let's try. I think it was this plane here. Actually, let's try this. Control Shift. Oh no, I saved I closed this. Let me see if it works. Yeah, I closed and reopened, so it's not gonna work. So those are my planes right there. And I need another plane, which is the area light from the back, which should be this one. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm probably using something else. I made a mess here. I have to actually select my lights and make sure that they are showing nicely. Let's see which one that is. I don't think it's any of those actually. Maybe inside of my studio lighting. Let's try that. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so with this lighting setup, it's going to be the same one I had before. So let's try a render of the eyelashes only, or maybe around here, and see what we get so far. Arnold, open, and let's try that. Oh, actually, I'm using a very good resolution for it, and we don't need that. Let me just cancel it very quickly. So let's go to settings, which is, yes.
Hey, I have a question about how are you going to do? I mean, if you have to do like dreadlocks,
If I have
curly hair.
If yeah. I have to do what?
A dreadlocks that they are like this black hair that the black people have, and it's like curly and long. You know, like Bob Marley and those kind of hair.
Yeah. The dreadlocks. Yeah, those are tricky ones because I mean, like you have a lot of parameters in XGen to actually control how scraggly they get. You can get like super high frequency stuff, but I would say like you probably would have to create some guides, or I think there's a way in XGen you can actually use a mesh to actually drive the entire thing. Maybe it would be a better way, you know, it's like start with a mesh and then maybe like have some curves generated from that mesh, and then just to drive everything, because I think you can actually create the same effect you're looking at for. I think like there are some tutorials, you know, talking about like how scraggly you have to go with it. I can look at some stuff, but I'm pretty sure you can find maybe like YouTube. Yeah, I think there's a way to do it.
Okay.
I would have to. Okay. I never did it, so I would have to do a little research. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. If I find anything, I post on the group for you guys. So I'm just updating my scene here. Seems like things got a little bit blown up. Go. Okay, now it's working. Oh, yeah, of course. So let me just pause this, because I'm using a lot of depth of field. Let me just turn off my depth of field. Around here in the properties of my camera. Arnold, and then depth of field. In the next few days, I'm gonna be basically like explaining all this stuff, like, you know, doing some renders with depth of field and just like going to town with, you know, it's like sculpting, painting, doing all kinds of stuff. And then you guys can actually see more of that. But for now, we're just trying to get this to render a little bit. Oh, what did, okay. I think that's what happened before. I kind of went too close. Ah, come on. Let's do this again. F. Let's make sure we have just that around there. Yeah, something like that we can actually see. So let's click this little guy around here. Just like select this area. And as you can tell in my map in there, they should be more like on the white side than the black side. So you're gonna see just very, very thin and whitish around there. Those are a little bit darker. And like I said, I mean, like now that I know that they are in place, the only thing that's a little tricky here is because I use the displacement node. So I basically like I displaced the root position, right? So originally the root was on top in here, but now the roots look like they're coming from a little bit lower. So when I paint my maps in there, if I want to get some of those guys to look a little bit darker, I'm gonna have to paint some white dots, but I'm gonna have to paint them in a way that I can actually see the position of them, right? So one thing you could try here potentially, if you want to make sure you're hitting exactly the hairs that you want to go dark, for example, you can just eliminate the displacement node to make sure that the root, it starts like exactly the original spot, right? And you can do exactly what I did today, which was basically like export the a polygon version of the eyelashes. Then you can bring it to ZBrush, and then in ZBrush you can have like a perfect position for that, you know. Another useful thing, you know, when you export stuff in Polygon like that and bring to ZBrush, is that you can actually paint a tiny little dot, you know, it's like almost like a little pimple right at the root of each one of those hairs. I did this for Dick Smith when I was sculpting. It was the first one I did because I was trying to push, you know, it's like and find like cool ideas about like creating a fake, you know, it's like ingrown hair kind of thing by using the ambient occlusion pass and just generating like a tiny little dot that matches each one of the hairs, just to create that effect that it was kind of like a ingrown, kind of like a darker inside of the root. But then another thing I did, I exported those polygons, which in my case was easier because it wasn't XGen. I just exported the polygons themselves, right? It was just the hairs are all polygons. And then in ZBrush, when I imported it, I could just like sculpt a tiny little pimple in, like right at the root of each one of them. So since we are here, maybe we can do this right now. I can see that they're in the right position in there, right? So I can see that they might work fine. So I might have to do add a little thickness to them, but also I have to make them more visible. So let's do this. Let's just turn off this displacement node right here. Just make sure that they're in the right spot, right? So I can actually, and then for that one, I'm gonna export one that's gonna be the one for a guide for my color. And the other one, since I'm using the displacement here, I'm gonna use export this one with the displacement in place so I can sculpt the pimples right at the spot. So let's start with the pimples one first. Let's click this one and just do generate. And where was it? Convert interactive groom to polygons. So this one here is gonna be my first one, which I'm gonna name, let's just get this one out of the group. So Shift P, get it out. And then I'm gonna name it, let's see, Pimple Ref. And then I'm gonna go back in here. I'm gonna turn off my displacement. I'm gonna export again. Man, I always lose it right here. My eyes. And then this one here is gonna be my color ref. So I have two sets, right? Let's make sure they are frozen. I'm gonna freeze them before export. So freeze, reset, history, history. And then I'm gonna export the pimple first, since we're experimenting with it. Oh, you know what? We still have to deal with the entire hair, obviously. I'm just spending too much time with this. But you get the point, right? I'm just exporting those ones as references to ZBrush. So the lower one is the one with the displacement. I'm gonna use this one to actually paint the pimples. So like just add the little pimples right in the roots. And then the top one is the one that actually is gonna drive the color of each one of them. So if I paint that little root in there like with a color, for example, white, that's gonna go black. And then once they're displaced, they're gonna keep that color. So it should be fine. So that's the whole intention, but I'm not gonna spend too much time here because I already spent a lot of time and I have to do the actual hair. So let me just hide those ones for now. And let's move on to the hair itself. Because we have like 35 minutes, I think we should be able to cover at least like the intention there, which is gonna be basically like the same deal, right? If I can get, look at that thing. It's oh, that's the light. Oh, got scared for a second. Let's get this guy here and then the lower eyelashes. Let's keep just them visible. Alt-H basically like hides everything but the selection you have. So if you have two things selected, just press Alt-H and it hides everything else. So, and then from this point here, let's just add the displacement again. I'm gonna hide this guy so I don't need it for now. And we're gonna move to the hair itself. So let's see if I can find my references. This guy here. So as you can tell, he doesn't have a lot of hair, but the hair he has is very crazy, especially like this one here. Look at that thing, man. It's like a mess in there. So that would be a pain in the butt to style, right? Because I have to deal with too many flyaways here. So let's look for one that is a little bit like that, a little bit simpler, right? That kind of, this is actually a good reference because I need some of those guides doing that stuff in the back. Kind of like a little bit curly on the back and longer, right? So I'm gonna try to get some of that stuff with some curves and praying that the curve is gonna work just fine for us. Yeah, I think like for the most part, I can actually get that. I think those are a good start right here. So let's try that. His hair is basically very sparse and just like on the sides and the back. So I'm gonna get my selection tool here. Make sure that I don't have anything else selected. So Control and then select everything. And now I should be clear. And then let's get this guy here. Grow my brush. And one thing that I do here is this. I split different areas, right? So if I'm sculpting someone with a full mustache and beard, but for example, when I did Stan Winston, I just like create a different description for the mustache itself, a different one for the beard, a different one for the goatee, and a different one for the beard itself, right? All the way here, and then I start with the hair. In his case here, I think when I did the Rick Baker one, that portrait, actually, what I did, I created the sideburns different because it's easy for me to control what's in the sideburns in relation to the hair covering them. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start with some sideburns here. Just gonna paint and let's see the positioning here, if I can find the reference. Let's see, this profile right here. Let's try with this guy. So the sideburns, I would have to guess a little bit. Would have to be around here. That's the end of it. And I'm gonna make them thicker than I should because I can actually blend those into peach fuzz again, right? Like I said before. And those ones here, for example, if I kept going, the reference I'm seeing is it kind of goes like this and then goes back in there, right? But I'm actually gonna stop right here before the actual hair starts. And I'm gonna create a description just for that. So there is a little buffer in here. Normally, like the hair doesn't grow too close to the ear, right? It kind of stops a little bit before. Maybe I can grow more and just blend. And it should be as usual, you just grow more area than you need, because if you need to eliminate, it's easy. If you need to add more stuff, it's harder once it's applied to just those faces. So let's maybe like eliminate some of that. It's fine the way it is actually. And then let's add the description here first. So interactive groom. Hard to tell how many we're gonna need here, but let's do like a guess of maybe like 1,000. No, 2,000 for both sides. Try something like that. Let's see. Sideburns. Let's try. That's too much, so it's gonna be almost like 55. Yeah, that should be good. So length of try 1.2. Probably gonna be longer than that. And then count at 32. I would say between 32 and 50, maybe 50, so I can get more flexibility. That's not a bad I would say, yeah, I think the density is pretty good. It might be a little, I don't know. We're gonna see as I style it. So let's see, sidebars. I'm gonna try adding some curves in here. If it doesn't work, I'm really gonna do everything manually. So add modifier, guide, click the guide, go to create. Oh, it worked, surprisingly. But that's the lottery here, right? If I try to eliminate some of that by using the, I'm gonna try, guys, sorry. I have to do this. I have to try to screw things up. So I'm gonna add it in here. Actually, should I click edit or should I just keep the guide? Now it's a good, yeah, I think I have to keep it selected. So let's try that. So let's paint this and see if it works. Wish me luck. There you go. Oh, it didn't work already. Yeah, I can tell it didn't work already. It's actually, it looks like it's not there. So let's see, sometimes it bugs with, if you go to the base, this one, sometimes if you rebuild it, see, now they disappeared. So I'm gonna try to do this with those guys. See, like it doesn't look like they're disappearing at all, right? Like they're still there, the yellow ones. And you click rebuild, bah, it disappeared. I know, it's a mess. I'm gonna try to eliminate all of that, just keep that little one in there holding space, because I don't want the whole thing to go away, right? Like otherwise the description just stops working altogether. Look at those guys. Jesus Christ, XGen. So there you go. So now we have those hooks in there. I just kept one on each side to make sure that they work, right? So let's just try to brush them and see if they still work. It doesn't. It broke the connection. I swear to God, man, I'm gonna kill this stuff. I normally keep just one because I know it's gonna break the connection and at least like one hook is gonna stay, but not even that's working anymore. Crazy. So I'm gonna try to, you know, to maybe reduce my my density in there and then to go from there. Let's see. So guide, eliminate it. Let's try again and just do very fast. So guide. Click create, and then let's go to my base, and then under base, let's just tweak my density here. 0.3, maybe less than that. 0.1. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, I have to go to my guide here. Guide, base. Okay, let's try that. 0.3. Okay, last 0.1. Okay, I have last now, right? Just a few of them. Let's see if they work. Be sure that I have my sculpt selected. Yeah, those ones are working. So, woof, I think we are good from here. So now, if you want to add more controls, obviously, you can actually click this guy here. So the place tool, right? And then you can actually add just where you need them. Around there, maybe one. Those ones are good. So one here, And by default, they interpolate, right? So the tool settings here, if I go to the tool settings of this guy, the place tool, you're gonna see there's interpolate in there. If I uncheck it, you're gonna create like a, just straight hair instead of like trying to interpolate with the existing ones. But we need to interpolate so we can have more control. So another one top right there. And now I can actually do some grooming. So I have this one selected, the sculpt, just like brush those guys. So in his case here, a lot of those guys are actually going down. Starting here, actually, this ones start changing direction. So I might need some more interpolation in there. And then also his hair goes in multiple directions like that. So it goes from here. And we're gonna be doing a lot of noise stuff as well, right? So it's not symmetrical right now. Make sure like when you're sculpting hair, don't trust too much like one single angle, obviously. Keep spinning around your model, because sometimes you think you're in the right track and then you turn around, it's a mess. And it needs some curvature as well. In his case here, let me open one here that shows it. They actually spread out a lot like this. It has this curvature, right? They straight down and then they curve. So I'm gonna have to make it a little bit longer. So let's make those guys longer first. So let's see. Is this working at all? Does it seem like it's working? Uh-oh. Oh, it's because I have my invert frozen effect, sorry. Okay, so now it's working. So let's get a little bit higher intensity. So let's grow those guys. So basically like the guides, as you can tell, like the hair actually follows the length as well, right? So if you have the guides longer, the length of the entire thing is gonna be longer. So let's get these ones. And then from the side, I'm gonna just pull them more towards the direction they have to be from the angle, like from the sides like that. But then from profile, I'm just gonna bring this one up here, up over the ear. And then I'm gonna add another one right there to hold it. So I can actually play with this one here going down. You have a lot of control, And then from the profile here, they're quite long actually. I'm gonna have to make them much longer than this because he has these very long ones. And I might have to make the density much lower as well. It seems like he doesn't have all this hair in here. It might have actually. I have to do some renders and see first. But yeah, like kind of more like that, I think. It's like it's a little bit more of a length that I can see in the pictures in there. And as you can tell, I mean, like everything is very even, so there is no interest whatsoever what I'm doing. If it's becoming too messy, you can always freeze stuff and just select one, right? And then make sure you have absolute control for it. I'm just like blocking for now, so I'm not like being too anal about it. I'm just gonna click this one. I'm just gonna add a hook right there, right here, and another one right there. So you get the point, right? Like it's not like a rocket science here. It's just adding some curves to actually help us to groom like the like the overall shape of everything. And then obviously we're gonna be able to add like modifiers on top of it and sculpt. You can modify either the curves or the hair itself. So I normally do a combination of both. And then from this point on here, okay, so this guy here is the one that's messing around. So I can do that. Gonna freeze it. Just this guy. And then I can just click this one here. That's an invert frozen. And now I can actually brush just that one. Should not affect anything else. So now I have like a little bit blocked hair, right? So you get the point of, it's like obviously you're gonna have to spend time to make sure that everything looks the way you're seeing your references, right? But just to have like an idea of it, it's kind of like that. Now the modifier that I always use, and you can tell, is the noise, right? So if I add some noise in here, now I can start playing with those values. And I can try to get like, okay, the magnitude might be too much, right? The cool thing about having 50 steps in the curve is that I can actually have like very interesting curvatures, curved stuff like that, right? Like the hair can get a lot of detail. And then the frequency here, I can actually make a little bit less scraggly, right? You know, we're talking about the Rastafari stuff, you know, so I can get like very high like that, but obviously you're gonna need much more resolution for your hair. So for example, if I have something like this, if you go to your sideburn base, like to your base, whatever hair you have in there, you can say like here in CV count, you can just say like, for example, 200, and you can just click rebuild. And now you get like a very, very curly hair right there. So for the Rastafari stuff, probably something around those lines, you know, you would do something like that. It looks very thick. But in our case here, I think, let's say like 64 would be a good one. And then let's go back to my noise that now I'm messing around here. So magnitude, bring it down. And frequency, bring it down. Like I said before, I mean, like if I'm doing something to look like more randomized, instead of like looking for something that's very subtle, like this, for example, that it would look kind of natural, in my renders, this would still look very, very straight. So I normally crank more than I should. So visually, it looks a little bit more messy like that. So when I render, it actually looks more correct. You know, it's like if something looks a little bit too wobbly like that, it's because it's gonna look correct at your final renders. So let's just change this one a little bit. And at this point, it's just like just blocking because I'm gonna have to move to the actual hair now. But you can have an idea. And it's like you can add obviously the clumping, right? Like to get a little bit more of the hairs sticking together, right? To, you know, very subtle. But I'm not gonna add it right now because he slows things down with after you add it. But what I can do, I can actually just add a little bit of a color with our shader. So let's just assign the hair shader, which is the same for everything, like I said before. So now it looks black in there. So let's see how so Control Shift H just reveals everything that I made hidden, you know, before. So all the stuff I just made hidden before. So Control Shift H actually unhides the last hidden stuff. So let's try to do a little render with those guys here. I might have to actually update my whole scene, but maybe not. Let's try. Let's see from this angle, just thinking for a second. Okay, let's unveil that one. And let's do zooming here. Let's see how pale this thing looks. It should look very white. But I should have some blacks in there too, because the way I have it painted in here. See, I have like I'm not gonna say black, but some of them should look a little bit darker because I have those white dots right in that area. Let's see the way it resolves in here. Let's see. Maybe like a little sample area like this. It looks very thin as well, right? So I think the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna tweak this because we didn't do much with the hair so far, right? We just plugged in there. Let me see if I did anything. So tube shading has to be on, so that's the first one. Arnold, let's turn on the thick one instead of ribbon. And then let's tweak this thickness. So I'm gonna put about 14 for the hair. So it's a little thicker than what we had. The taper, we're gonna add a little bit taper, not much. And then I'm gonna tweak this curve to spline down. We start with the root very thin, not very, but slightly thinner, and then spline. And then this one we're gonna make very thin at the tips, and then thicker at the middle. Maybe a little bit bigger in the root right here. Just remember, I mean, like it's all about the intention, right? Like if you're doing like a hair for the stubble, for example, you want to make sure that you don't have like, you know, too much tapering or too much of a point, because you're clipping that hair, right? So you should be more square at the tips. So it's all about the intention, you know. In this case, here is the hair that grew for a long time, so you should have a little bit more of a, you know, it's like a nicer fall off towards the tips. Same I do for the peach fuzz as well. That gets a little bit more of the. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a render so we can see what's going on. Yeah, I can see there's already some blacks in there. Around there. And this is all coming from the map. In the past, I would do it like for each one of those guys, I would have like a different shader assigned to each one of those groups. Like for like just sideburns, would be a different shader, and because I didn't know how to control it. But then once I figured out the whole using one single map for everything, I kind of like it. You know, it's like obviously like if it's a very specific kind of thing, you can play with like having a different shader assigned. But this thing here, I can actually control everything. You know, it's like even like precisely. If I export stuff from XGen, like I just show in there, you know, export the polygons from XGen, and then precisely you can actually just paint one single hair that you want in a different color, you know. So yeah, it's looking pretty nice. So those ones are very, very dark right now. Like those areas here are probably like almost black. That's why it's turning out like completely white in here. But it's already working kind of nicely. And then we didn't talk too much about it, but I'm gonna just stop in here. You can see what's going on in there. Let's wait a little bit more so you can see the result. But the hair itself here, as long as I don't change any parameter, we should be okay. You see, like you have the melanin plugged in here, which is the map that I have, right? That came from ZBrush. So it's like, oh yeah, I just canceled it. I knew. So this one here, let me just pause it for a second. So this one here is the map itself. And then the only thing I had to do differently here is under color balance, I have to crank the exposure. Because sometimes you bring it from ZBrush, and although it looks like black and white, like that would work just fine, for some reason it doesn't show anything until you crank those values. So I kept my alpha as luminous here, but then I cranked this one pretty high. And then the alpha gain, what I'm trying to do here, it's basically like if I keep it at 1, it's going to be like very white and very black hair, right? But as I bring like lower and lower, basically what I'm trying to do is actually even things out more, right? So instead of like alpha gain being like, you know, it's like bringing the completely black hairs at 1, so I'm making them a little bit more on the brown side by bringing this down. You know, it's like kind of like evens the map out. So you can play with the offset as well, so you can get more blonde. So let's just memorize those numbers. I can show you very quickly. So for example, like it's 0.095 now, right? Let's crank it. You see how much blacker it's getting now? So by default, it would be something like this, like 1, right? So I have like very, very dark hair in there with some whites in it, right? But then if I bring this one down, the lower I get, the more like overall white it gets, right? Now, if we do this with this guy here, with the alpha offset, you're gonna see like the variations are kind of like diminishing as well. So it gets more like a black altogether, right? So basically like this one, I'm keeping at 0 and I'm controlling just this guy here until I get something that's a little bit more of like, okay, what's the ratio between blacks and whites, you know? It's something that it's respecting the map itself from ZBrush, but I can actually exaggerate, you know, it's like the ratio. I can get like more whites than what I have in ZBrush. So for example, if I go all the way down here to 0, now it's like almost completely white. Actually, it is completely white, right? And then as I go a little bit higher here, I can start introducing more and more blacks. So I think like my sweet spot here before was around 0.90 something, 95. I can keep around like 0.1 here. So that's basically like if you look at your map and if you painted something like this for your melanin map, if it looks like this, you brought to your Maya and you're trying to render and you're not seeing anything, you might have to crank the exposure. You know, I'm gonna put at 1 here for actually at 0. So at 0, it's giving me this kind of result, right? Which basically, like, even at 1 here with 0 in there, which is the default, right? It would be 1 and 0. It's not working. You see, like, it's completely white. But as soon as I start cranking this one, and then I can play with the alpha gain, then I have much more control over it. So that's something to watch if you guys are bringing stuff over. So now we know that the thickness is kind of working. I'm gonna have to tweak stuff as I go, obviously. But for the sideburns here, I just added, which one is that? Let's see the thickness of it. Oh, actually, let's go back here. So the melanin, let's go back. Actually, let's select like that. And then for the shape, so I have like a 0.014 for the thickness of the hair, which I might tweak a little bit lower or higher. And then I'm using a little bit of vapor mixed with a little bit of ramp, right? Like that kind of curvature that I normally do. So let's do a similar stuff now for the rest of the hair. We're kind of like short in time, but I mean, like, it's not going to change much. It's going to be the same thing. Basically, I'm just going to be doing it more after the class, but it's going to be the same deal. So it's going to be, you know, going to select this thing. And now I'm going to have to deselect those areas, right? So I'm going to just control, open a window outside around it. So it's deselected. And now I'm going to paint another mask, which should cover, let's see if I can get another example here, this guy. It looks like this. I tried to get the similar positioning. Oh, Jesus. Similar positioning, right? So I'm gonna grow a little bit more like a diagonal here. Although he has some peach fuzz in here, which I can do both ways. I can actually either add this as hair, where I can see peach fuzz in here and just deal with it, or I can use the actual peach fuzz and just like make them longer and then blend with the hair, which is another option that I often use. So I'm gonna do that. And this, as you can tell, I'm gonna have to make them shorter in here and just like style them nicely. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna add some of that hair starting here. Making sure that I don't get the ear too much. And again, I'm gonna leave a little bit of a buffer around the ear because the hair doesn't grow all the way, probably around here. But always keeping in mind that I rather have more mask than less mask. And then even here, I mean, like instead of like stopping right here where the hairline would be, sometimes you can actually go a little lower, and then you can transform those guys into kind of like a little bit thinner hair, right? Or you can use the peach fuzz. So let's just do what I'm seeing there and then use the peach fuzz to actually complete this area. So we're just gonna do like a slightly, let's see, I can see his ear in there. In relation to the ear, it goes a little bit lower than the lobe. So maybe like his hair ends around here. So if I have anything left over, that's not a problem. So I'm gonna go here. And I don't think I have a lot of pictures of him from the back, but I believe that his hair is gonna end around here. So I'm gonna look for some references. And then kind of like a diagonal, but with a little bit more buffer. Around here, let's see. Maybe a little bit too high. Actually, it's not too high. Actually, his hair goes all the way up, but it gets very, very thin. So he starts like losing a lot of it. So what I can do, I can actually add some of that by hand. So I can show you how, if I wanted to do it. And there is always a way to do hair transplant. I can explain to you guys tomorrow how to do it, or you can just look at the videos from the past class. Because what I did, I actually exported all the hair to a file, and then I basically like re-imported into the same mesh later. And then when you do that, basically like it breaks this connection between the faces and the hairs, because like if I assign the hair right here and I try to place hair by hand in this area after that, it's not going to allow me because it's going to be locked into this area. But if you transplant to another model or to the same model without any mask, but rather the whole model itself, the hair is going to be applied in the exact same spot. But the advantage is that everything's going to be open, so you can actually click in any area and add more hair on the fly. So sometimes it's an advantage to actually just transplant the hair and then have like everything open for you to play with, you know. But I end up in the class from last month, we have that. Yeah, it's gonna be a little tricky to see because it has white hair and the lighting is not helping too much. Let's see, I have another one of him profile here. That's the thing. The most challenging thing is to actually model likeness without having a ton of references. And it's not like I put a ton of effort to find a ton of them. I still have like probably like, let's see how many. I have 33 references altogether for this guy so far. So kind of like exercising my imagination, I guess. And praying that's gonna look like the individual. Yeah, I'm gonna do it like that. And then if I need an additional pass, just like for some flyaways and some spread out stuff, I can actually either transplant it or just like create another different, you know, it's like different setting of a set of hairs just to cover that. So I think something around here is okay. So let's grow some hair. Let's go fast, interactive broom. Let's do let's say main hair, like that. And then as we talked about, like the entire scalp, including the sideburns here and the hair itself all the way to the forehead, that would be around 100 to 150,000 hairs. So in this case here, let's do like, since we already did this part and he's missing a lot of hair in there, it's gonna maybe like stick with maybe like 60,000. Let's try that. Let's see, 150. So 54, 180, 65. That's, yeah, 175, 63,000. Okay. And then the length, let's do longer than that. So let's start with the 2 and scale. And then the CV count, since I'm gonna have to have like all those curls in the back, I might actually go with 100 here. Let's apply that. It looks pretty dense. I might have to actually, you know, to remove some of the density, right? Like play with the, you know, the drill here. Let's see, main hair. If you go to the main hair base like this is the density multiplier here, right? If it's too dense, you can actually just say like, oh, okay, I want like 0.5 of that, right? And then you get a little bit more like that. Or you can just like redo it all together, which might be advantage here. So let's redo this one. Let's just assign it again with maybe like less than that, right? So let's try with, let's see, 100 here. 36 is too little. So 120, 43. Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. Okay, that sounds good. And then for the guides, let's do it again and pray that's gonna work. So let's click this one, add modifier, and then guide. Click the guide, create. Okay, that's a lot. Main base for the guide. Actually, in guide, click this one. And then this one, let's put the, let's go crazy here. Let's try with the 0.1. It's like nothing, right? Just a few of them. Maybe less than that, 0.01. Yeah, so just like a very few of them. I'm gonna just hide the sideburns altogether. And I'm gonna hide actually the guides for the sideburns. This ones. So now I only have like one in here and one in there. Let's see if they are actually working. Let's get this main hair, guide, in guide, sculpt. Let's turn it on. Yeah, it's not working. Oh man, I hate it. So let's see, let's click it again. Let's see if I have intensity at 1 here like it was originally, if it's gonna work. Yeah, that one works. So maybe that's the problem. Let's try it 0.3. Yeah, I think it's still too much, you know. It's like I would rather have more control. And then, like I said before, I mean, like I would actually use this this density thing, but all of a sudden it doesn't work, you know. It's like a, so let's try. Let's see if I do it slowly. So it's still working. Still working with those. Let's try to rebuild. Okay, so eliminate those ones. So I have just one in here, still working. That's good. Sorry for the hackering here, guys. It's just like I really want to make sure that this works, but I don't want to destroy everything. Let's do step by step. Still working? Yes. I just want to eliminate some of those curves. You know, it's like it's a pain in the butt to style when we have too many. And in theory, you should be able to do this very easily by just like removing them with the density brush. But because it's so buggy, you have to suffer with stuff that should be super easy, you know? So now I have just one couple here, couple there. Oh, okay, I think I went overboard with those. Still working, yes, okay. So now in this area that I eliminated everything, I can just add one that I can control right there. Because I want to have control. Uh-oh. Is it doing it or is it gonna crash? That's gonna be a waste of work. Uh-oh, I think we had trouble and it's just on time. Oh, I might have to redo this stuff. That's awesome. Yeah. This is one thing that I noticed about Maya. For example, like if you did an action, sometimes you have to wait a couple of seconds before you can do another action. If you try to do stuff on top of stuff while Maya is spinning its wheels, sometimes it's like it completely locks and then it doesn't allow you to do anything. So it might had happened just now. It was kind of like I thought it was pretty much stopped in there and I clicked and just froze everything. But anyway, so in theory, guys, that's how it works. In practice, as you can tell, you know, it's like it's buggy. I would say like if your model has like short hair or has just like, or is bald with a beard, kind of like you know, what I had with Stan Winston, right? This guy here. A lot of this stuff, like his beard, I didn't have to use any guides. So this stuff was done entirely without guides. It's a breeze to work without guides. So like it's super easy. It doesn't crash. It's you know, as long as you don't use like too much of the density brush, you're pretty much safe. But then as soon as you introduce guides and stuff, it becomes a mess. So yeah, most of the hair I ended up like sculpting without using too much of the guides, just like to block the main forms and then going from there. But as you can tell, it's locked, right? And I think it ends in a very low note. But I mean, like the content is in there, so you guys can try it out. Maybe your machine is gonna have a little bit more luck than mine, but unfortunately, it didn't happen for me. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry about the mess, but that's how it goes. Be prepared to use XGen.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Gracias.
Thank you.